Hi there, Charles.
Hi there, Frederica. You know, for almost 33 years, Leslie Van Houten has been behind these fences at this prison here in California. It's a place that is swarming with flies, where the air is pungent with a nauseating smell of cow dung. This is where she's been for most of her adult life because of the horrendous crime she committed when she was a member of Charles Manson's family. And I use the word family with quotation marks around it. At the time, 1969, 19 years old. It was the day after Charles Manson and his gang brutally killed actress Sharon Tate. They went to another home, the home of the LaBiancas, Lino and Rosemary, his wife. In one bedroom, Lino LaBianca was brutally murdered. In another, his wife was being held down, a pillow over her head, and Leslie Van Houten was there helping to hold it. One other member of the Manson family then brutally stabbed Mrs. LaBianca with a bayonet, handed a knife to Leslie Van Houten, who then stabbed her some 16 times in the back. She was convicted of murder. She's been here ever since. For 13 times, the parole board has turned down her request for a parole. Last month, the judge said that she needed to be provided a roadmap because under California law, she's entitled to that in order to get out, because it is alleged that she is now rehabilitated. She has helped other prisoners. She's a model prisoner. She's even made quilts for the homeless. Needless to say, there are others who think that she does not deserve to leave this prison, not now, not ever. This parole board today will make a decision. Whatever decision it makes, it will then go to the governor of the state of California, and under California law, it is the governor who will then decide whether or not she can ever be a free woman. That is, unless a judge here, which would be a precedent for this state, decides to overrule whatever decision Governor Gray Davis decides to make. Frederica?
All right, Charles Feldman, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now, the board will likely decide whether Leslie Van Houten should go free. And if any of Manson's followers are going to go free, she's the one. We'll bring you the decision live when it happens. Also tonight...
Now, Dan Abrams.
Hi, everyone. Also on the agenda, one of Charles Manson's followers. Parole has just been denied for the 14th time for Leslie Van Houten, one of Charles Manson's followers. She has long been considered the only potential Manson follower, or the only Manson follower to have any potential to be released on parole. In particular, this parole hearing was important because a judge had instructed the parole board to take into account what Van Houten had done in prison. Let's listen for a moment.
Apparently, which the inmate stated she and her crime partners believed would lead to a race war. They were innocent victims who were targeted in an attempt to further this cause. The inmate and her crime partners entered their home. The inmate put a pillowcase over Mrs. LaBianca's head, put a cord around it to secure it. Her crime partner then attempted to stab her. This didn't work. She brought in another crime partner, Mr. Watson, who did stab her, and then the inmate again, then stabbed her as well. This was a cruel and calculated murder, and carried out in a manner that demonstrates a disregard for human suffering. The inmate also, while she was in the home, wiped off fingerprints. She went to some lengths to hide her participation in the crime. After getting back to the ranch where she was living, she burned evidence which could have tied her into the murders.
As they go through some of the details of the evidence in the Manson case, we're going to come out of that hearing. We are going to have full coverage of this in our next half an hour, and we should tell you that if Leslie Van Houten has any comments, if there are any press conferences, etc., we are going to go to that live. Regardless, though, we are going to have full coverage of that decision. Again, Leslie Van Houten, one of Charles Manson's followers, denied parole for a 14th time. She'll still be up again in another 2 years. All right, thanks, Charlie, for those wonderful words of wisdom. Let's go to a press conference. It's being held now by the sister of Sharon Tate. You see her there on the left, and the LaBianca family member who's on the right. And they are talking about their reaction to the decision. Well, they're now done talking about their reaction. to today's ruling. They are clearly pleased about the ruling. But, you know, it does pose some interesting questions about parole. One of Charles Manson's followers, Leslie Van Houten, just minutes ago, she was denied parole for the 14th time by the California Board of Parole. And here is Christine Webb, the attorney for Leslie Van Houten, not happy about the California Parole Board's decision. Let's listen for a moment.
Their cousin. But I just certainly, Leslie there is a long record of her expressions of remorse at these past hearings, and certainly in the psychiatric reports and in her therapy that she has participated in here at the prison. She has certainly, in detail and at great expense to herself, expressed her remorse in a deep and abiding way, and that's the way.
She's talking about Leslie Van Houten, the model prisoner, still not eligible for parole, and she's not the only one. That since it is life with the possibility of parole, she has done everything anyone could possibly have asked from her. And as a result, if you're going to have parole, which in this case that's the law, then she should be getting out.
I believe that some murderers are deserving of parole, but you have to look at what they did in their crime, and what she did was unconscionable. She participated in slaughtering 2 innocent strangers in the supposed sanctity of their own home for the sole purpose of blaming those murders on blacks in hope that whites would start indiscriminately murdering black people, thereby triggering a race war. Not a race war that would be a Rodney King type race war that would just stay in LA County, but one that would go across the United States and result in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. Now, when deciding parole for someone like this, you have to match her up against other murderers in California. And when you do that, she and her cohorts are off the chart. They are the worst of the worst, because I've been a DA for 35 years, and I don't know of any other case where people have tried to murder other people to start a race war.
All right, Mel
and
Sachs.
I think because of...
So I'm sorry, Mr. K. Let me just get Mel Sachs into this very quickly. Mr. K, I wasn't expecting you to come. We're so glad you were able to make it on for this discussion. But Mel Sachs, what do you make of that? Should she be released? But I think with Stephen K following her around, it's going to be tough. Stephen K, Andy Kahn, and Mel Sachs, thanks very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Up next, a woman gets fired from her job. She says it's because she was pregnant. A judge says it's
Notorious crime sprees of all time, the Tate LaBianca murders. Van Houten was convicted of stabbing grocery store owner Rosemary LaBianca up to 16 times back in August of 1969. But she had hoped her track record as a model prisoner would weigh in her favor to receive parole. But the board did not see it that way.
It's a very difficult thing to live with what I did when I was 19 years old and be able to carry myself with any form of dignity as a woman.
Appeared very disappointed when the board announced its decision today. They did commend her for her progress in prison, but said she did not exhibit a real sense of remorse. Leslie Van Houten will be eligible once again for parole in 2 years. Rick.
Anita Vogel, thanks.
As you no doubt know, on the weekends we're on tape with programs called Larry King Weekend, 2 very interesting programs. Tomorrow night we'll repeat our interview with Leslie Van Houten, who for the 14th time has been denied parole. Leslie Van Houten on...
Was laying on the floor.